Alright, let's talk about a company as American as apple pie, or at least as American as a giant green machine tilling the soil for that apple pie. I'm talking, of course, about John Deere. Their tractors are iconic, they're the color of money, which, coincidentally, seems to be what they're chasing south of the border. John Deere has been making some significant moves. They're not just selling tractors, they're shifting where they make some of them. Specifically, they're expanding operations in Mexico. This isn't a sudden whim, it's a calculated corporate strategy. For instance, mower production, previously in Ottumwa, Iowa, is being moved to Mexico. This is part of a larger plan to optimize their operational footprint. So, why the big move? According to John Deere, it's all about staying competitive. They say this strategic relocation is about managing costs. It's about balancing production costs to meet demand more efficiently. The company insists this is crucial for long-term viability and global market leadership. The green tractors are rolling, but not everyone is happy about the direction. Now, you can't have a major American company deciding to ship jobs to Mexico without a certain former president weighing in. Yes, Donald Trump had some thoughts, and by thoughts, I mean threats. Big, loud, tariff-shaped threats. Trump threatened a 200% tariff on any John Deere products imported back into the United States from these new Mexican facilities. That's not just a tax, that's a financial headbutt. This is classic Trump playbook. If a company dares to move jobs out, hit them with tariffs. He believes that these kinds of punitive measures will strong-arm companies into keeping manufacturing jobs on U.S. soil. The logic is simple. Make it prohibitively expensive to import, and companies will have no choice but to produce domestically. The fiery reaction from Trump highlights a fundamental tension. On one side, you have corporations like John Deere seeking efficiency and cost savings. On the other, you have a political ideology that prioritizes domestic job preservation above almost all else. So, John Deere shuffles its production, Trump thunders about tariffs. But what does this actually mean for real people? Well, surprise, it often means job losses. Significant job losses. When a company like John Deere decides to shut down U.S. production lines and move them elsewhere, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet changing, it's livelihoods disappearing. The relocation of mower production from Ottumwa, Iowa, means fewer jobs in Ottumwa. It means skilled workers who may have dedicated years, even decades, to the company, are suddenly looking for new employment. This isn't an isolated incident. These decisions ripple outwards, creating anxiety about the future of U.S. manufacturing as a whole. The impact isn't just about the immediate jobs lost at the John Deere plant itself. Think about the ecosystem that surrounds a large manufacturing facility. There are local suppliers who provide parts and services. There are small businesses that rely on the wages of those factory workers. When the factory scales back or shuts down, these ancillary businesses also take a hit. It's a domino effect, where one falling piece can topple many others. The promise of more competitive globally can sound pretty hollow when your local diner is struggling to keep its doors open. It shakes the foundations of communities and forces a painful reassessment of where the American dream is heading. The story of John Deere's production shifts isn't just a tale of corporate boardrooms and international trade agreements, it's a story deeply rooted in the American heartland, in the rural communities where these manufacturing plants are often the lifeblood. When a company like John Deere decides to pull up stakes or significantly reduce its footprint in these areas, the impact is profound. These towns often grew up around these plants and their fortunes are intrinsically linked. In many smaller towns and rural areas, a John Deere facility isn't just employer, it's employer. The wages earned there support local schools, fund local services through taxes, and keep Main Street businesses alive. So, when those jobs disappear, it sends a shockwave through the entire community. The economic backlash in these rural areas can be severe and long-lasting. Finding alternative employment can be incredibly challenging. Workers may face the prospect of having to relocate, uprooting their families and leaving behind the communities they've always known. This can lead to a downward spiral of declining property values, shrinking populations, and a general sense of malaise and uncertainty about the future. Beyond John Deere, Mexico, and Trump's tariffs, a larger saga unfolds in factories worldwide: automation versus the human workforce. Every efficiency talk includes automation. John Deere's moves reflect this technological shift. Automation displaces workers, but also creates new roles in design, programming, and maintenance. It handles dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks, freeing humans for complex roles. For John Deere, balancing automation with skilled human labor is a perpetual challenge. It's not all sunshine and green paint over at John Deere headquarters these days. The company has been facing significant headwinds, including challenging market conditions and declining customer demand. As a result, a series of layoffs have hit its U.S. workforce. The U.S. Department of Agriculture projected a 16% decline in major row crop cash receipts for 2024. This came on the heels of an 8% drop in 2023. When farmers make less money, they are less keen on buying new equipment. Since early 2024, the company has cut over 1,700 jobs in Iowa alone. John Deere projects its earnings for 2025 to be down $5 billion from 2023. John Deere's decision to move some production to Mexico and Trump's fiery tariff threats in response aren't just isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of much larger shifts and tensions in global trade policy. For decades, the prevailing wisdom was all about globalization. Break down trade barriers, create global supply chains, and let companies produce goods wherever it's most efficient. This led to cheaper products for consumers, but it also led to manufacturing jobs moving from higher-cost countries like the U.S. to lower-cost ones. Now it seems the pendulum might be swinging back. Media group, national flags in a row, factories in various countries, made in. We're seeing a rise in what's often called economic nationalism, where countries prioritize their domestic industries and jobs. Trump's America First agenda was a very loud example of this, but he's not the only one. Other countries are also looking more inwardly, concerned about supply chain vulnerabilities and the social impact of job losses. This creates a much more uncertain and potentially volatile environment for multinational corporations like John Deere. The implications of this shifting landscape are huge. If more countries resort to tariffs and trade barriers, it could lead to trade wars, where everyone ends up losing. Prices for imported goods could go up for consumers. The whole John Deere saga perfectly encapsulates the rise of economic nationalism. It's this idea that a country's economic policy should be laser-focused on protecting and promoting its own businesses and workers. The core appeal of economic nationalism is emotional and intuitive. People see factories closing in their towns, jobs disappearing overseas, and they want someone to blame and something to be done. Politicians who promise to fight for American jobs and stand up to foreign competition tap into a very real sense of anxiety and grievance. Donald Trump's rhetoric around John Deere and tariffs is a prime example. He's framing it as a battle between American interests and corporate decisions that, in his view, betray those interests. However, the puzzle of economic nationalism is that its pieces don't always fit together neatly. Imposing tariffs to protect domestic jobs can also make imported components more expensive for other domestic manufacturers. It can also lead to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, hurting export industries. So, while you might save some jobs in one sector, you could lose them in another. John Deere's situation illustrates this perfectly. So, where does all this leave us? The John Deere story, with its Mexican moves, Trump's tariff threats, layoffs, and market challenges, is a microcosm of the incredibly complex and often contradictory forces shaping our economic future. On one hand, companies like John Deere operate in a fiercely competitive global environment. They are constantly seeking ways to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and innovate to stay ahead. Sometimes this involves making tough decisions about where to locate production. They also emphasize their continued significant U.S. presence, with an economic impact valued at $27 billion on hometown communities. On the other hand, the impact on American workers and communities is undeniable and deeply concerning. The loss of manufacturing jobs, especially in rural areas, can be devastating. The rise of economic nationalism and protectionist policies is a direct response to these anxieties. The challenge lies in finding ways to support affected workers and communities. This might involve investment in retraining programs, infrastructure, and support for small businesses. Ultimately, navigating this long furrow ahead will require more than just corporate strategies or political sound bites. It demands a nuanced understanding of the interplay between global economic forces, technological advancements, national interests, and the very real human impact of these large-scale shifts.